Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. My name is Lea Beliaeva, and today we're talking about vermut. For centuries, Catalans have been enjoying la hora del vermut, or in English, the vermouth hour, a time during the day when people slow down and sip a cool glass of vermouth while catching up on life. But what exactly is vermut? Where does it come from? How does one make it? On today's podcast, we visit the self-proclaimed land of vermut, Las Bermudas, located in the Sant Antoni neighborhood of Barcelona, where we learn all about this versatile drink, and on top of that, we also make our own vermouth. I'm joined today by Cillian Shields. Welcome, Cillian.
Thank you very much, Lea. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm very good. And you?
Very well, very well. I'm excited about this. Vermouth is it's a nice topic, I think.
It's something that you like.
And I think it strikes right at the heart of Catalan culture. So we're very much bringing that to the audience today.
That is for sure. And what is vermouth overall?
Vermouth 101. What is it? Well, we can distill it down into three words. Fortified, aromatized wine. So it's a drink, basically, that it's wine-based, and you add things to it to give it a bit more of a punch, a bit more of sort of a rich, dynamic flavour to it as well.
Mm-hmm. And the historical origins of the vermouth we will get into a little bit later on. But as you said before, this is like a very popular thing in Catalonia. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Vermouth is a very popular drink, not only in Catalonia, but all of Spain, but I think especially out of all of the Iberian Peninsula. There's one place in particular that's most strongly associated with it, and that is the southern Catalan city of Reus.
Reus.
Yeah, probably not the first city that you might think of when listing out all the towns and cities in Catalonia, but Reus has a very strong, very proud history in alcoholic spirit making and exporting as well, as we'll hear about later. And central to that is obviously vermouth itself. The brand, the marca, the idea of vermut de Reus, Reus vermouth, is very strong all across the country.
Okay, so you mentioned a strong tradition of alcohol making in Reus. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, down the centuries, Catalonia has always been a great wine producer. There's plenty of vineyards down in the Tarragona area. Tarragona is the sort of southern Catalan area where Reus is located. And back in the 18th century, the local economy in Reus was very strong in producing wine, but also aguardent, which is sort of a distilled alcoholic spirit that doesn't really have a name in English, but firewater is probably the closest translation.
Yes.
So if we think back to like the 1700s, there was already this kind of tradition. The city of Reus was really built on it. And then we fast forward to the middle of the 19th century, and something happens which really kind of increases once again the Reus business back at the time, and that's known as the Great French Wine Blight. Okay. So a particular type of infestation of grape phylloxera spread all across France, and in the middle of the 1860s it meant that demand for wine from France was huge. They were looking to import wine because they weren't able to make it as much themselves. So that made Reus a particularly rich place. They knocked down the walls of the city, they expanded, so many amounts of wine producers and distillers set up there, and Reus became a wealthy, important city.
But actually, the vermouth, it didn't come from Reus. I mean, it's an important place for vermouth, but it didn't come from Reus.
No, exactly, you're right. They were first experimenting with it around the city of Turin in modern-day Italy, around 100 years before it was ever actually made in Reus. But it's important to kind of like situate our minds back in this time when Reus is producing a lot of wine anyway, and vermouth being a wine-based drink, you start off with wine and you add things to it to ultimately come out with vermouth. This kind of like sets the stage, sets the conditions for the vermouth industry to take off here. And it wasn't until 1892, in around 100 years after the first vermouth was made, that the first brand was registered in Reus, and that was done by a man called Joan Gili, and he's kind of considered the father of vermouth in Reus. But yet, this is all at a time when there were around 30 producers and around 50 different brands of vermouth existing in Reus around the turn of the 20th century.
Wow, that's a lot. And can you tell me, is there any difference between vermouths from Reus and vermouths from Turin?
Well, yeah, the biggest difference would definitely be that Reus vermouth is sweeter than Italian vermouth. It's much more palatable to have it straight. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing about vermouths that you'd have here, you would drink it straight, just with ice maybe, usually also garnished with an olive and an orange slice. That's the kind of traditional Catalan way of having it. But in most other countries, it is usually considered an ingredient to then mix with others to make a more broader cocktail. Or at the very least, it's almost always had in Italy, for example, with a bit of soda water, sometimes even Campari. But it is also, like, I mean, we have it alone here in Spain and Catalonia, but you do also commonly see the sifons, the sort of bottles of
on the table.
Yeah, for soda water.
So you mentioned this rise in popularity of vermouth in Reus, and it went through this long golden era, but then it started losing popularity around the 80s, and then it didn't regain popularity until the mid-2000s. What happened?
I think in the latter half of the 20th century, kind of cocktail culture overtook it, and then what brought it back? The financial crash of 2008. Vermouth is a very cheap, very affordable drink, and so when the well-documented economic la crisis happened here in Catalonia and in Spain, people were looking for something affordable to have, and vermouth seemed to be the answer. So ever since then, in the past 15 or so years, we've seen a bit of a revival in vermouth's popularity.
And one of the places that have emerged on the back of this revival is Las Bermudas. And we went there, but more specifically to Las Bermudas University. And Cillian, I have to say, you were a straight A student.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm Elena. Welcome. You are here at Las Bermudas University.
The name Las Bermudas obviously is a bit of a play on words with the Bermuda Islands. It's Bermudas with a V, which might not come across in audio form, but that's how it would be pronounced in the local languages here. And we are in Las Bermudas, the university, which is a sort of a workshop area in the Sant Antoni neighborhood of Barcelona, learning about the history of vermouth and also later on how to make it.
Always vermouth o'clock, so you always welcome.
The first thing we need to know, obviously, is what is vermouth. And Elena, our teacher, she has just asked us, and our model student, Cillian, well, you knew the answer right away.
It's actually wine, you're correct. It's also fortified. In 3 words, it's fortified, aromatized
In
wine.
fairness now, I didn't get it 100% right there. I missed out on the aromatized part of the definition, but hey, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
2 out of 3 is very
You
good.
are the first winner of a $1. That's the official currency of Las Bermudas. Congratulations.
Thank you so
right?
much.
Yes. Yes, you're a good student. Now, guys, pay attention because there's money to be earned here. Vermouth has its roots in ancient history. Like wine has always been aromatized,
And according to Elena, historically people have always added aromatics to their wine. And it wasn't until the 17th or the 18th century that people started drinking wine without adding anything to it. It was fortified with alcohol for it not to spoil, basically.
Yeah, Elena even told us that going back all the way to the time of Hippocrates, the father of medicine, really, from ancient Greece, he was crafting wine macerated with botanicals to make medicines. Vino Hippocratico was sort of the name of this, which was effectively vermouth being a medicine.
That sounds like a really tasty medicine, to be quite honest with you. Much better than the medicines that we know today.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling something coming on me right now. I'm not really feeling well. I might need to try it out.
Need a little bit of vermouth to get through the day. And Elena also lets us on to the not-so-secret ingredient to vermouth.
Is part of our vermouth recipe is called wormwood. All right, so
wormwood. Wormwood is the key ingredient. But listen, don't worry. This is a herb. This is a botanical. It is not what it sounds like. It's not a worm found in wood.
Thank God, because that sounds not very appetizing, to be quite honest.
No. This is just the aromatic that's key to the flavor of vermouth.
Okay, and the word vermouth, where does that come from?
Well, it comes from this word, wormwood, which in German is vermouth. And you can sort of imagine that word being carried across different cultures, different languages, and just sort of morphing into the vermouth that we understand today.
Let's continue on to the vermouth tasting part of this visit.
Tasting, by tasting these 2 first white vermouth, right?
So in front of us here in Las Bermudas, we've got 5 shot glasses of different vermouths, 2 white and 3 red.
So the first one smells floral, and the second one smells fruity, like Moscatel. But when you taste it,
So sweet and dry are the two opposites. Those are the sort of dividing pillars of what makes a vermouth, and everything in between, so the semi-sweet, semi-dry, and even the extra dry itself. But apart from that, Elena also said that vermouth is not classified by its colour, or at least it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, that's the theory, but in practice, well, people mostly divide vermouths by their color.
Yeah, it's funny. It probably shouldn't be, because, a dry red is going to be way more similar to a dry white than a sweet red. But it's interesting, just how society kind of understands it, misunderstands it even.
Yeah, exactly. And as the vermouth tasting continues, we go from white to red. And Elena, she explains the different notes of the vermouths, from fruity to herbal, bitter, sweet, and then also she explains where it all came from.
Elena explains that vermouth gets the colour from the type of sugar that is added to it. So there's regular liquid sugar, which makes white vermouth, and then there's caramel, which makes red vermouth, as 99% of all vermouth is already based on white wine. Another possible misconception that it might be made on red wine.
if we want to produce a white vermouth, we will add saccharose. This is liquid sugar. If we want to make a sweet vermouth, because we want to leave it dry, we don't add anything, right? And if we want to make red vermouth, we will add natural coloring. In this case, we have caramel. Caramel is the most commonly used colorant for our vermouth. It's not the only one.
And after a very detailed and also very entertaining introduction to the world of vermouth, we are all itching to mix our own. But before letting us all do that, we need to know just one last thing.
And I would like you to try it because it's so important for vermouth. The mysterious botanic that since 2,500 years is aromatizing vermouth.
So it's that most important ingredient of them all, wormwood. We all had a taste of this to kind of get to know what this drink is that we're making, what it's based on, where it comes from, its roots, its essences, and it is extremely bitter. It was not a pleasant experience. We all had a drop of it poured onto the back of our hand that we had to lick, and it's this bitterness that makes it an aperitif at the end of the day.
Because what happens actually in the stomach when you get this bitter taste in your mouth?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. This bitter taste kind of creates stomach juices. It induces digestion already, but if you don't have any food there to be digested, this sort of creates the effect in your body that you get hungry. And therefore, with a bitter drink, you end up with an aperitif drink.
Aha, well, very clever people who created this concept of the vermouth, because when you drink it, you also want to eat stuff.
Okay, so now we're ready to prepare our own vermouth. We put 200 ml of wine in our measuring cups.
We continue on to the process of mixing our own vermouth. And in front of us, we have a bottle of white wine, a bottle of almost pure alcohol, drops of wormwood essence, and two types of sugar, the brown caramel sugar and the white liquid sugar.
So back to that initial definition, fortified, aromatized wine. We fortify it with the alcohol, we aromatize it with the wormwood, and we start off with the base of wine. So that's how we got the 1, 2, 3 definition there. But more aromatization will come with all the flavorings that we'll add to it. We move just behind us to the bar of the Las Bermudas University, where there's dozens of different flavor options to choose from, where we have to put a total of 100 drops of different flavors in to create whatever sort of balanced vermouth that we want. These flavors are broken up into 4 different categories, depending on which kind of character or personality you want your vermouth to have. So you've got fruity floral flavors, you've got herbal, botanicals, you've got exotic ones, and you've got bitter. So Elena explained to us that it's best to kind of go with just mostly 2 of these categories in order to make your vermouth an ultimately well-balanced drink.
And after adding all the essences, you pour in the sugar or the caramel.
Yes, exactly. That came last in this process. And quite interesting, like you could also choose how much sugar to put in, because this is key into determining whether you want an extra dry, a semi-dry, semi-sweet, or a sweet, the 5 different categories of vermouth that you can ultimately come out with.
And we all leave Las Bermudas with our own tiny bottle of homemade vermouth.
Yeah, we just have to give that 2 weeks to kind of let the flavors infuse and enjoy it, preferably on a sunlit terrace. little bites of food on the side, and yeah, we'll
Ready
be living
to
our
go.
best lives.
Thanks to Elena from Las Bermudas for inviting us in. And as we just heard, we got to make our own personalized vermouth to fit our taste and our style. So, Cillian, for you, as the vermouth lover of Catalan news, so how was the process like for you?
It was very fun, very, very fun, I have to say. I've actually got my page right here where I took my notes of the different flavors that I put into it.
Okay, tell us.
Yeah, well, to be honest, as soon as I heard that tonka was a flavor that we were able to put in, I immediately knew that I wanted to base my drink on that. I love the flavor of tonka. It's a really interesting and quite a rare flavor that you find as well, so just wanted to take advantage of that. It's got notes of almonds, vanilla, cinnamon and cloves, so to me I thought, like, yeah, perfect. Let's build vermouth on that. I've never had a tonka-based vermouth before. And in addition, I put a few drops of coffee, nutmeg, cinnamon, orange blossom, vanilla, dandelion, myrrh, and calamus.
It sounds like you knew more or less what you were doing.
It's easy to completely spoof this. Obviously, I had no idea what I was doing, but it's just a case of you've got the flavors in front of you, these essences, and just with a little pipette, you just drop them in, and it's as easy as that. And it's a really fun experience, really, just kind of taste them all, try them out, and just decide what you want to build your drink out of.
For sure. And as we just mentioned before, Catalonia in Spain is one of the few places where vermouth is enjoyed without mixing it with anything except for ice and garnish. But you also said that in other places they use it just as an ingredient to create a cocktail.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the most famous kind of cocktails that you can imagine, really, as well. But yeah, like whiskey, sweet vermouth and bitters will make you a Manhattan. Gin, dry white vermouth will make you a martini. Gin, sweet vermouth and Campari will make you a Negroni. Just add sparkling wine to that and you've got the Negroni Spagliato.
Okay, so I'm more of a beer person, but all of these cocktails, they do ring a bell. I've tried quite a few of them and they are really, really good. And a couple of months ago, the best vermouths in the world, they were chosen by an organization that is called World Drinks Awards. And for the second time in a row, the Catalan vermouth called Marnutem, which is made in the Bell Lloc d'Urgell, just outside of the western Catalan city of Lleida, won.
Exactly, and in fact won 2 different awards. Because like we mentioned earlier, there's 5 different types of vermouth, and therefore there's 5 different awards. And Marnutem's white vermouth from 2023 won Best in the World in the semi-dry category, while its Rosé 2024 won Best in the World of the semi-sweet category.
And one vermouth that I really enjoy is Vermouth Medusa, which also just won Binari d'Or in the same competition. So that's my tiny recommendation. And are there any places that you think you should really visit to try great vermouths?
Yeah, totally. Well, I can only really speak about Barcelona. It's where I live. It's where I've spent most of my time. So other cities do serve vermouth, of course, and Reus, there's a whole ruta de vermouth that you can go to there. A few fantastic bodegas. But what I can tell you about Barcelona, Las Bermudas, of course, in Gracia is where their bar is located. As well as that, Senyor Vermouth in Eixample, it's also great. Morrofi as well in Eixample, also Les Corts. Super Classic in Raval. Quimet y Quimet is also very famous in Poble Sec. Bi de Vermouth, which you also know in Sant Antoni, really good. But honestly, this is just like a few of the places that I know, and if you go looking, even on Google Maps, or even if you find the place while out walking, anywhere with the word bodega in the name of the place, that is a very particular style of a bar, steeped in tradition, steeped in history, and you're going to be guaranteed authenticity there. So if you find a bodega something, bodega Fermin, bodega something, you're guaranteed it's going to be good.
Fantastic. Well, now we're all ready to go out and enjoy vermouths.
Enjoy life.
Enjoy life.
Life is vermouth.
Exactly. And now it's time for the Catalan phrase of the week. And actually, we have 2. We couldn't just make up our mind and decide on one, so we kept the 2 that we thought about. What are they, Cillian?
Well, one is quite straightforward. It's easy. It's the easy choice to go for. And the other one is a little bit more out there. It's a little bit less commonly said, less commonly understood. But I was kind of taken by both, and I wanted to bring both to the table today.
I'm intrigued.
So the easy one is fer el vermut.
Fer el vermut.
It literally means to do the vermouth, to make the vermouth. But what it means in practice is it's this practice, it's this ritual of meeting up with friends. So you would say like, oh, fem el vermut, will we have the vermouth? Will we make the vermouth? And it means, will we meet up, usually in the early afternoon, to enjoy life together, to catch up, to have some food.
And the second one?
And the second one, it's a little bit more out there. It's the name of 3 cities, and the phrase would be Reus, París y Londres. Reus, Paris and London. It's less said nowadays, and it doesn't really mean something much beyond the name of these 3 cities, but it's kind of said with a hint of irony, putting Reus on the same level as these other 2 extremely cosmopolitan, these world leaders in culture and business and finance and everything. So to put vermouth on the same pedestal as Paris and London, it's usually said with a bit of a wink, but Reus, París y Londres, the 3 world leaders.
And that's all we have time for today. Thanks for listening. Do subscribe to Filling the Sink wherever you get your podcast if you haven't already. Thanks again to Elena from Las Bermudas for inviting us to the Bermudas University and helping us make our own vermouth. Thanks to you, Cillian. And
thanks to you, Lea.
And we'll be back again next week with another episode of Filling the Sink. On behalf of the team here at Catalan News, I'm Lea Beliaeva, wishing you a great weekend. Fins aviat. Adeu.